Hi, about 2 weeks back, I started a couple of indoor plant cuttings in water. As for today, most of them are doing well, but some of them are on the verge of completely rotting. So today I'm going to share with you possibly what went right and what went wrong with these cuttings. We're going to pot them in soil and we're also going to start a couple of new cuttings. I had started cuttings for 10 indoor plants. About 6-7 of them were the soft stemmed ones such as money plant, monstera, aglaonema, silver pothos, 2 kinds of philodendron. And all these soft stemmed indoor plants actually rooted. So in water I hadn't added anything else. I just took a cutting under the node and I added them to water. It took them about 7 days to first show roots, and since it's been 14 days, now these roots have reached about 2 inches or so in size. Now for potting them, what you would need is about 3 to 4 inches deep pot, and we will plant them in soil. For displaying your plants, if you want to use a ceramic pot or if you want to use a basket, I would suggest that first start them in a regular plastic pot and then you can add that plastic pot to your decorative pot. There are 2 reasons for this. First, that whenever you add water to this plant, all the water will seep out and will be collected in this basket, so it will not get dirty outside. Secondly, if you plant them directly, let's say in the ceramic pot, it gets very heavy to move around. If your ceramic pot has a drainage hole underneath it, I would suggest that use such transparent trays underneath. This will help collect the extra water, the dirty water. For soil, you can use any ordinary soil that you get outdoors. The regular gardening soil varies across the geography. So let's say regular gardening soil or the regular soil that you see outdoors in Haryana might be very different from that of Karnataka. In your soil, you can add some homemade compost to it. And if you don't want to use this regular soil, you can make your own potting mix at home. If you want to know how to go about it, I've done a video couple of months back actually. There's going to be a link on the top right corner. Whatever soil you may use, one important thing to ensure is that your soil should be well draining, which basically means that whenever you add water to the soil, within few seconds the water should seep out from the bottom. And the reason we need well draining soil is that the roots of any plant really likes some breathing space, some air cavities. So if you don't have soil which is well draining, there are a couple of things you can do. First, you can mix perlite with it. Chemically speaking, it's very similar to glass, but it doesn't have those sharp edges. It helps your soil to retain air cavities for longer. If you don't have access to perlite, you can also use coco peat, which is coconut shavings. They will help retain moisture for longer and also help maintain air cavity or air spaces in the potting mix. So for planting these cuttings, first fill bottom 1 inch or 2 inches of the pot with soil, add your cutting and fill up the soil in such a way that you have at least 1 inch or 2 inch from top of the pot empty. And the reason we need these 2 inches empty is whenever you add fertilizer or compost, it will give space for that compost to sit. Secondly, every time you water your plant, you need some space for that water to sit and seep eventually over time. So for that reason, you should ensure that your soil is not filled up till the brim or up till the top of the pot. And likewise, we pot all the other cuttings. One cutting I would like to make a special mention of is ZZ plant. I can't believe it actually rooted. So I had selected 2-3 healthy looking cuttings and I was not really sure that if they're going to root. I used honey to reduce the chances of rotting of these stems. Although the success was low, only 1 stem cutting rooted, but that's okay with me. Here is another easy way to pot your cuttings. Fill the pot with soil first and make space for the plant with your finger. Just ensure that it's big enough to accommodate the roots without hurting them in any way. And keep this pot in a well-lit space. Now if you're wondering that you have also tried something very similar, but despite doing everything right, still your cuttings started drooping or they started dying when you shifted them from water to soil, what could have gone wrong? Now there are 2 things that could go wrong in this case. One, when the cutting is growing in water, life is very easy for the plant. Nutrients are dissolved, they are very easily available in water. And secondly, the moisture is abundant, right? Because it's water, of course. Now, when you shift this cutting from water to soil, life gets much difficult. Moisture is not that easily available. Nutrients are also not that easily available. So this cutting undergoes some sort of a shock. The change in environment sends the cutting in some form of shock. So sometimes the cutting is able to sustain that shock and it can establish itself and grow, but sometimes it just surrenders. So how can you help your cutting to grow better when you shift it from water to soil? Try and do this shift indoors and do not keep this pot for about 7 to 10 days outdoors. This will basically protect your cutting from intense sun and heat. Second thing that goes wrong is sometimes you just don't see any growth with your cutting when you shift it in soil. The leaves might look perfect, the plant might look perfect, but it's just not growing in size. This typically happens when you choose too big of a pot for planting your cuttings in soil. So whenever a plant is growing, it makes two kinds of investment. One is below ground in form of roots to catch more nutrients, and the other is above ground, which is leaves, fruit and flowers. So if you're not seeing any growth in your plant, basically you're not seeing any growth above ground. That means your plant might be diverting all its energy below ground. This happens when the pot or the soil is too much for the plant. The plant tries to invest as much possible in the roots so that it can establish itself. So I would say that whenever you start a cutting in soil, choose about 5 to 6 inch deep pot. Once your cutting or that plant has grown out of that pot, you see the roots have started coming out of it, then shift it to a bigger pot. This will also improve the rate of growth of your plant. Now, let's move on to the second part of the video where I will share with you what all went wrong with my cuttings in water. Snake plant. I had started this also in water, but it completely failed. I have tried this method before and it has worked out well for me. It didn't this time because I forgot to change the water. I had kept it in the balcony. It was out of sight and out of mind, and I completely forgot to change the water. This is really important that whenever you grow your cuttings in water, remember to change the water. For the other cuttings such as fiddle leaf fig, croton, despite changing water for them, they still died. I think this is the thing with gardening. It's always hit and trial. I have tried them with rooting hormone, it has worked well, but this time I didn't have rooting hormone and I still wanted to give them a try. So I tried honey. Because honey is antimicrobial, I thought it might work, but it didn't. The other cutting I grew was jade. Now for jade, it's very interesting. It has neither rotten nor it's showing any roots. Until it shows either one of them, I am not going to give up on it. I don't want to give up hope and I want to grow more cuttings. So we are going to grow jasmine. Choose a healthy looking woody stem and make a cut under the node or the point of branching. Plant it in soil in a small pot. I still don't have access to rooting hormone, whose basic job is to avoid decaying of this wooden branch, but there is a small chance that it might work like it works for soft stem plants. Second cutting I'm trying today is syngonium. Snip under the node and add it in water. My basic learning from all these cuttings that I grew in water is that all the soft stems like the money plant, the philodendrons, they do really well in water and you don't need to do anything apart from that, just change water. But for the hardy ones, the woody stem ones, you need little something extra more than just water, and rooting hormone works for them, but I'm going to give them a try in soil because the conditions for rotting are lesser relatively in soil and we'll see how that goes. I will update you on that. Now let me give a quick update on a couple of new plants that I started in my balcony garden. The first plant I want to show you all is capsicum, and I had started it with seeds. It's doing really well. It's time to harvest these capsicum. I wanted a couple of them to turn red so that I can prepare more seeds out of them. These are two chili plants. I had included them in my video about 3 weeks back and they're doing quite well. I think they've grown about 7-8 inches. In another 2 weeks or so I expect them to flower. This is arugula. It's somewhat like rocket leaves and I started them from seeds. They've sprouted about 2-3 days back. You can eat them in a salad and they should be ready in about 40 days or so. And I've also grown more coriander and methi. I hope you like such gardening videos. Basically, in my videos, I'm trying here to explain the how to part, like what are the steps involved, and also along with that, I try and explain the why of it, like with simple concepts of science, so that you understand why we're doing what we're doing. If you like such formats, do let me know down below. I'll try and come up with more such videos. I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.